This is the Humans of Gaming podcast, an open and honest conversation about games, life, and belief.
Hello and welcome to Humans of Gaming. I'm Drew Dixon. I'm the Chief Content Nerd at Love Thy Nerd, and I'm joined with Chris Gwaltney. Hey, Chris.
Yo, I'm Chris. I'm the Chief Executive Nerd with Love Thy Nerd, and we co-host this here podcast, Humans of Gaming, and we try to get to know the humans behind the games that we love and play and buy.
That's right.
And not play and hope to play someday.
For sure. So we have a special guest today, and that's Paul Shortt. Hey, Paul.
Hey, I'm special?
Well, that remains to be seen. Yeah.
All right.
It does kind of make it less special when we say every week that they're special.
Right?
So maybe we should come up with some other descriptors.
Yeah. Dastardly. This is our dastardly guest.
Or or cuddly or something. Something like that could be fun.
Yeah, I don't think you guys have ever seen me. I mean, I appreciate all the descriptions. They're fun.
Which of those, you have to choose one, dastardly or cuddly. Which do you go with?
Dear Lord, they're so close. I would go with dastardly. Oh, I'm not sure. I think I'm going to regret that.
Yeah. So, Paul, what do you do in the games industry? How would you frame what you do to our listeners?
Yeah, I'm a graphic artist / designer / I draw things and I illustrate and I do production, creation. Oh my God, I could do this all day. Basically, I'm a graphic artist and I work for Exploding Kittens.
Yeah. So that's a game people might have heard of. Tell us about Exploding Kittens.
Exploding Kittens is a card game that's a lot like Russian roulette, with a bit of a twist. I mean,
a little safer.
Much safer, unless you're really violent with the cards. But it's got a little bit of Uno in there. It's a real quick, fun icebreaker kind of a party game. It's one that you can pick up and not have to worry about much. You're not going to be playing it for hours and hours unless you want to. So
yeah, I've had that happen before with Exploding Kittens, where it just went on and on and on because of the way the deck was set up. It was totally the fault of the guy who set up the deck. It
sounds like something went wrong.
It was what are those? There's like cards that you can play that that like let you reshuffle the deck and things like that. You know what I'm talking about?
Well, yeah, we have shuffle cards.
It's called Shuffle.
Well, I know, but like they were essentially like, you know, after a while you've gotten most of the Exploding Kittens. You know, they've detonated and most of the people are dead or whatever. Well, like if you're there's some sort of thing we were playing with that let you like, you know, set up the deck to where it was essentially safer. You know what I mean? I forget how it worked, but I just remember it going on and on. Yeah. Sorry. This is exciting radio.
Had to be there. It was a geography joke.
All that to say, like, it wasn't the fault of the game. It was totally the fault of the guy, the way he kind of set up the deck. So that's my theory anyway. I played it several times. It's super fun. Chris, I assume you've played Exploding Kittens, right? Seems like that's the sort of game like everybody's played.
Yeah.
I mean, that's good to hear.
I mean, it's just a quick, fun, like, very accessible, even kind of a gateway game, I think, for people that aren't, you know, they still think of, like, Uno or Skip-Bo as, like, cool, good card games. It's a good game for those folks to see, like, oh, there's other games out there, you know?
Yeah, hopefully it becomes one of those classics that falls right into that category you just listed out.
And the art on the cards is the perfect balance between creepy and funny.
Yeah, if you Yeah, it
Just gives you that tingly feeling inside.
Especially the not safe for work version.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've picked up those cards yet, but
Oh yeah,
I haven't,
Okay.
but I have a friend that has it. I haven't looked at them yet.
yeah. They're pretty hilarious.
yeah, and we thank the oatmeal for that great art.
The oatmeal.
Yeah.
Who's that?
Oh yeah, the oatmeal. He's a webcomic. He's been doing. He started out as this could be a podcast about Matt the oatmeal. He started out as a IT guy. Was doing like SEO for websites and stuff, and went into like web comedy, and gained a huge following. And it was him.
You've seen it, Drew.
Yeah.
It was him and Alon Lee and Shane Small who created Exploding Kittens together, and now we're here. But that's a brief description of the oatmeal in a nutshell.
Okay, gotcha. So how did you get involved with Exploding Kittens and making art for games and things?
It's funny, actually. Before this, I was working for a healthcare company.
Naturally.
Ooh, living the dream.
Doing user interface design and some UX work. And a friend of mine who follows the oatmeal, but pretty religiously, sent me this job description. This game called Exploding Kittens that I hadn't heard of at the time. This was like 3 years ago. And she sent me this tweet that said, "We're looking for a designer." And I thought, why not? I'll throw mine out there. And I created a resume and a note card specifically designed to look like Matt's work, the oatmeal's work. And I got a call back. And
Oh, nice.
the rest was history. I left a job I actually really enjoyed to take it.
Yeah.
And
But you were doing for this healthcare company, you were doing user interface design as opposed to graphic design. Is that right?
yeah, and it's all sort of it all sort of bleeds into each other. But yeah, it's artwork, design work for different, I don't know, products and healthcare systems and applications and stuff like that.
I guess I think of UI as more functionality, but I guess it really does have a strong visual component to it, generally.
Yeah, how does this button look? Do I put a
Yeah,
drop
yeah.
shadow on it or not?
That's really important. Like, that's a huge
Yeah, people got to want to click
element
that button,
to-
you know?
right. Yeah, it's a huge element to whether something's useful and usable and inviting. So,
Yeah, we were always the free spirits, and it was UX that would constantly yell at us about how stupid our buttons were because they didn't follow UX protocols and stuff like that. So,
but what did the users think of your buttons, though? That's
we
what
didn't get right. We didn't get a lot of the quality control stuff that we tested. I mean, we were part of it sometimes, and for the most part, we hit the mark. For the most part, but yeah, they like my buttons. That's what I'm saying.
So did you have you always been a gamer? Was that something that's always interested you, the idea of working in the games industry, or did it just kind of came out of nowhere?
It fell into my lap. I was not looking for it. But I play tons of games. I mean, I'd say I'm more of a video gamer than a tabletop or card gamer.
Yeah.
But,
What's your jam? What do you like to play on video games?
dear God. Right. Well, the Steam sale's happening right now, so this is really cutting into my
Rip.
shopping time.
Yeah.
We'll try to wrap it up.
Yeah. Can we just another 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
What do
I gotta play some games too, so.
Right now, I'm really into the PS4 VR stuff. Some of my friends are really getting into that stuff. So
Oh, yeah.
just shooters and some strategy. I don't know. I'm all over the map. I don't really have a jam per se.
Nice. Okay, so you've always been into video games, but this sort of just kind of fell into your lap. You weren't really expecting it, sounds like.
No, not at all. And I'm glad they called me back because this has been a real ride.
What's it been like? I mean, I think I'm probably not alone in the perception of Exploding Kittens and your guys' presence at conventions and stuff. It's goofy as hell. I mean, I think that's probably a shared perception for most people. So I'm sure a lot of people want to know, like, what is the work environment like? What's that culture like, the last 3 years? Or you said that's how long you've been with them?
Yeah. Yeah, they were probably operating for about a year before I came on board. And it was small. I mean, a very small startup, maybe 10 or less people, which is sort of new to me. I mean, coming from a ginormous healthcare company. So jumping into a startup environment was kind of tough, especially being a remote employee. Everybody else is just in one small room, and I'm here alone. So alone. And it's still tough. I'm still working remote. They're out of LA. I get a chance to go out there on occasion, but it's the ability to create is so much fun because we're just trying to make experiences for people to just enjoy. So yeah, like you mentioned, the cons we do. Have you seen our booth at any of the cons?
Oh yeah, every time. It's hard to miss.
Yeah.
The human vending machine.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things for sure at every convention.
And every convention, it just continuously draws huge lines.
Yeah.
And I haven't been in a while. It's kind of nice not to because it is exhausting work. So at this point...
Yeah, you have to be the arms of the machine sometimes.
Either you're creating the crazy stuff that's coming out or you're operating the signs that say your purchase is happening or...
Yeah.
Or you're the magician in the back doing things for the kids. I don't know. There's so many bodies for one thing. So it's exhausting.
And speaking of conventions, tell us about Burning Cat.
I can't say a lot about Burning Cat outside of what we've already posted.
Yeah. Well, I assume there's people listening that don't even know anything about it.
I know. And now you're going to actually make me go to the website and read it.
I thought you'd have it memorized word for word by now.
Frankly, I haven't been, I'm not on that committee. So,
yeah.
Well, not yet. You keep playing your cards right.
Well said. Burning Cat, an event from the creators of Exploding Kittens. What is it? Burning Cat is a do you want me to do this? I'm doing it.
This feels like so tailored to our experience right now.
So it's an Exploding Kittens convention.
Yeah. What we're trying to do, I think, is just make something that fixes a lot of the things that other conventions do wrong.
You could say, make conventions great again.
Oh, nope. I won't do it.
You can have that. Hey, you guys can have that. Make a hat. Give me 10% of the kickback.
Boy.
You're welcome.
That's a gift. I really appreciate that.
That'll
gift.
draw longer lines at your vending machine.
No.
So what are some of the things that you said you're going to try to one of your goals is to fix some of the things that you don't like about that you and your team don't like about conventions. What are some examples of that?
Again, I'm reading the bullet points. This is the worst.
I'm sorry, we keep asking you about this thing that you're not super involved in.
I know. This is one of the things that I really should have spent some time on before we started talking.
That's okay. It sounds like it's going to be fun. Where is it going to be?
We're actually doing it at the Oregon Convention Center in Oregon.
Nice. Cool. Well, people should definitely check that out. And you can. I don't think it involves actual burning of any cats, right?
No, and I'm sure we'll get an earful from animal rights activists as
PETA.
That's been happening for years anyway. And
from your game, you've gotten
oh yeah,
crap from PETA.
Yep.
What did they get upset about? Just the jokes?
Oh, for sure.
I mean, it's in the name. I guess the argument is it's fantasizing or glorifying violence toward animals. Even though we're not hurting any animals. They're not really exploding.
You heard it here first, folks. They're not.
It just plays on the curiosity of cats and just they're always around explosives in our game for some reason. They're batting the wires of the brick of C4. It's not my fault.
Just normal cat stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Just cat things.
So you've been there now for how long?
I guess about 3 years now, yeah.
Okay. And correct me if I'm wrong, but like at one point Exploding Kittens had like the largest Kickstarter, like card game Kickstarter for a while. Had that record?
Yeah, I think it still holds a record, but we have to be specific about it. So it might be like the top funded card game.
Yeah. That's usually how records work. You just clarify it enough, you have a record in something.
Yeah, and it keeps getting smaller, as time passes. But it was just under 9 million. It was like 8.8 million. We were asking for $10,000 to get it produced. So we hit that mark.
They just gave you the rest over the $10,000.
Yeah, pretty well.
That's
we have to produce, right? So that 8 million comes with all of the things we promised. So that's a lot of people getting a lot of games.
Oh, for sure.
And it all sort of evens out. I mean, whether we got $10,000, we'd just be making a lot less product.
So has working there increased your interest? I'm always curious with people in the games industry. Has it deepened your love for games, or is it kind of like you get to the end of the day and you're like, oh gosh, I want to do anything but see or play a game?
No, it's increased my interest in other games. There's a fleet of games out there that I never knew existed, and we play them and we test them, and that part's great. It's when we're play testing our own games, where we're playing the same thing over and over again. Then we're at the point where we're done. we really don't want to test that game again.
Right.
I feel like you're one of the first designers I've talked to that actually admitted to getting burned out on playtesting.
Yeah,
I feel like most of the people I've talked to, or even people we've had on the podcast, are like, "Oh yeah, we playtested like 400,000 times, and I still love the game." I'm like, "You're lying. There's no way."
Yeah.
I think the simpler the game is, the more tolerable it can be in a repetitive nature. Because there's still, especially with Exploding Kittens, I mean, that as a flagship has just been, I can still play that game. And there are different strategies to keep playing, even though it's not that complicated. But some of the other ones, some of the ones that take a little bit longer, you don't want to pick them up. Not like every weekend.
So where did you grow up?
Right here, Southeast Michigan.
Okay.
Born and raised.
And what'd your folks do?
My mom she was a stay-at-home mom. My dad he's done a lot of things. I don't know. Right. He's retired now. Let's just leave it at that. He's done a lot of things. He's retired. And he texts me sometimes.
What does he text you about?
Last time he was asking me if I wanted to take a ride in vintage airplanes.
Oh, that sounds cool.
Sure.
Did you do it?
No. I don't even like flying commercially. I wasn't about getting an old World War II bomber. That thing's probably should have been decommissioned long ago. I'm not that adventurous.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And then he's like, he thought he was making it better. He's like, oh, well, they also have biplanes. I'm like, that's not better. That's open air. You're going to fall out. I'm a big man. I mean, I catch wind. I'm like,
so is your dad a pilot, or does he just have connections somehow to take rides in these planes?
No, it was just an event here in Michigan somewhere where it was like, I don't know, like an air show or something where they were charging for scary, dangerous plane rides.
So what was life like in, you said Southeast Michigan?
Yeah. It was fine. I could really stand to move somewhere else. at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd love to end up in LA where the company is, or somewhere out west. Would be really nice. But growing up here it's Michigan. If you've never been, it's beautiful when it wants to be.
So you mean it's beautiful like in the summer and then horribly cold in the winter?
Yeah, just like you guys saw on the news, we got those -40 cold snaps that where people were just freezing in place. I'm sure that happened. That doesn't sound like something that happened.
Walked outside and just
that's science.
Froze.
It's basically the same thing that happened to Chicago. Chicago got it real bad too. Yeah, it's cold.
Yeah.
It gets really cold.
Yeah.
So I'd love.
So did you grow up in like a church or anything? What was your family religious?
Yeah, my grandfather on my mom's side was a pastor. And God, I'm trying to remember what
Your grandfather or your grandmother, I'm sorry.
Grandfather.
Grandfather. Okay.
Yeah.
Grandfather was a pastor.
Yeah.
What kind of
I know. I'm trying to remember what denomination it was. It was somewhere along the lines of like Nazarene or Pentecostal or something like that. So on that side of the family, I grew up with a lot of speaking in tongues and yeah, I mean, where you get. Like,
did you do it? Did you speak in tongues?
No, I was always weirded out by it as a kid. I mean, I was used to it, but I could never wrap my head around it. And my grandparents and my mom and so on, they tried to explain what it was and give me the rules of how it works. And it's all Holy Spirit based. And I wish they had like a manual or something. It would have made it so much easier.
It's the Bible.
Yeah, right. They would have told you that's the Bible.
But it's still.
Yeah, which is super clearish.
Yeah, I felt the same way when I've experienced it. And I sort of feel I'm always a little reticent to talk about it just because I did not grow up in that kind of like faith tradition. Like speaking in tongues and stuff was not a part of my upbringing at all. So I don't want to like, I don't know, offend anyone, I guess, that grew up in that and appreciates it. But I'm the same way. I just didn't ever experience it really even. And so the few times that I did as an adult, it's just like, oh, I'm the same way. Like I wouldn't even know, how do I get into that? I don't even, I couldn't tell you step one.
Yeah.
I've kept the streak alive and I've gone my entire life having never been around it.
You've never heard anyone speak in tongues? Never. Oh, interesting.
And I'm totally fine with that.
I would say it's worth seeking out at least once. It's an interesting experience, if nothing else.
Yeah. Yeah, I would affirm that. It's definitely interesting. So did your parents were you ever made to feel like kind of guilty because you didn't do this or like you should or something? No,
it was never like that.
Oh, that's good.
And my parents were divorced early on. I was 9. And there were 2 completely different church experiences. While my mom's side was more into the spirit-driven, language and expression, my dad was the super conservative, quiet, be seen, not heard church.
Yeah.
So that was just real conservative Baptist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So that's got to be pretty interesting, like having a foot in both those camps growing up. Did you feel like maybe you resonated with one more than the other, or like neither or both?
Neither. My wife and I both fell in love with the idea of non-denominational and just the openness of being able to worship without like weird constraints. We were, honey, were we a part of the Lutheran Church? Were we members?
I was. You were.
Did you get kicked out?
Yes.
Yeah,
do you just want to get her? Let's just switch. We'll just get her on here.
I'm sorry.
Just switch out.
See, we work we both work at home. We have one office.
Yeah.
So she's here to support my questions.
There you go.
Yeah, there was some excommunication. Basically, we didn't.
Oh.
we didn't tithe enough at the time, or we didn't
Oh,
go
wow.
enough Sundays. That was, yeah, her side of the family is a mix between Catholic and Lutherans, which are,
That's hardcore, man.
yeah.
So you said it was a mix of not tithing regularly / not showing up.
Yeah, it was something. We got married in that particular church,
Okay.
which that was an uphill battle too.
In what way?
Well, they're pretty strict about how you set yourself up before marriage. So they want to make sure that you're in different living environments. You're not living together, and that was the big thing for us. We were, and we put a lot of effort into exposing some of the hypocrisy on what they were trying to say. We had pledged not to, sleep with each other, stuff like that before marriage. And the church just, it didn't work that way, because they couldn't like watch you 24/7 or like really trust you. So the pastor at the time reluctantly agreed based on our argument. And we got married.
Reluctantly agreed to let you get married? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. We took the required classes to make sure we were compatible, or whatever it was. I mean, there's so many rules.
Yeah.
Why were you at this church?
Because it was the church that my wife grew up in. It's the church that her parents belonged to. Mm-hmm. I could have taken it or left it. It didn't matter to me, but it mattered to her and it mattered to their family. So, but we picked that battle and we fought it, and we got married. So, I mean, it all worked out in the end.
So, you guys were. So, I guess growing up, then would you have you thought of yourself as a Christian? I guess you would have said, "Oh yeah, that's me." Is that true?
Yeah. Okay. I don't think there was ever a point where I didn't identify religiously as Christian.
Okay, gotcha. So is that like, where are you at now? Are you guys still? Is that how you'd still classify yourself, or? Yeah,
same thing. For me now, it's a lot of. I try not to get too heavy, I suppose.
We're ready.
I'm not sure I am. It's a lot of what you see in the politics right now, with things that I would consider like hypocrisy, from the right, and the being judgmental, et cetera, which I know there's arguments on both sides, but that I guess if I were to label myself, it would be fairly liberal for a Christian.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. So what are some examples of that? I'm curious, because I think there's a whole spectrum, right, of what people mean by that. So I'd be curious if you have an example. Yeah,
it's a lot of it is acceptance of other religions, of lifestyles, of just loving your fellow man as a foundation for who you should be as a person. And I think a lot of that falls by the wayside in some of the more strict churches or Christian denominations. Not all. And it just seems like the more vocal of those who are Christian are typically right wing. And I'm still like finding people who identify as like left or democratic. They don't talk a lot about religion. Watching the Democratic debates last night, I think it was Pete Buttigieg who said something along those lines that was actually quite nice to hear. And it was
there was like a line about like a moral monopoly or something like that.
Yeah,
moral monopoly on religion, or
he took sort of a hard line and said, if you think this particular way, you probably you're not you shouldn't be calling yourself a Christian. And it was
Boom,
a
roasted.
maybe a little harsh.
Like, was this with regard to like the children that are being detained, or what was the context?
You know what? I think that was the primary context in the whole thing.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, I saw a good soundbite of it this morning. I didn't stay up all last night to watch it. That's a lot.
Well, that is like, we tried not to get too political on the show, but that is one thing that I'm in a way thankful for in our current political climate that's like super
Sucky.
like sucky. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Super sucky is that I think a lot of hypocrisy is being exposed. Now, of course, a lot of people are just doubling down on it and kind of owning it and just being like, well, this is who I am. This is who we are. And that part's really sad, but I do think some hypocrisy is being exposed. And my hope is that maybe some of that, some of those attitudes and perspectives and even policy actions will change because we realize how that's got to be at least my hope, you know, that some of those things will change because that hypocrisy is exposed.
Yeah, I think you said the one word that I think is the big differentiator here, and it's perspective. If you are siloed and you have nothing else to base your experiences on, sure, I guess I get it. But if you have the opportunity to work with, play games with, just hang out with, or just be around in general, you will start to, your horizons will broaden.
Yeah.
You'll see that, people aren't that as bad as you think they are, or, a certain type of person or religion, or, just get to know people, and it will change your life.
It puts a face to, like, it puts flesh and blood onto, ideals or political parties or whatever.
Yeah.
Instead of just, I can hate this thing because it's just nebulous or non-specific. But then when you meet a person that is, enter thing you disagree with here, and you find that they're like a living, breathing human that has thoughts and feelings and dreams and fears and everything else, you take a step back and you're like, oh, like they're like me,
Right.
Yeah. I was curious how you kind of develop, because that seems to be like I don't know, for lack of a better word, like a core value that you have is you seem to value diversity and diversity of thought, and like maybe inclusivity might be a good term, but I'm wondering how you ended up valuing those things when it seems like you feel that wasn't embodied in your church experiences and stuff growing up.
It was on the job experience is what it was.
Yeah.
I even before, like I mentioned, the healthcare company I worked for a law firm at the time, and that wasn't diverse at all. So that was like, for 12 years, I worked in an industry that was all like old white dudes. And when I moved on to different experiences, the diversity, in the tech industry, it's super diverse, and you start to meet people and you start to talk to people, and it was eye-opening. All the things my parents taught me to fear all of a sudden weren't scary anymore. One example, Jehovah's Witness. We were taught at a young age, you don't open the door for those guys.
Yeah,
because they're gonna indoctrinate you, and they're crazy, and they're a cult, et cetera. I've worked with a number of people who were Jehovah's Witness, and frankly, it's from how they talk about it, it's really not that far off from Christianity. I mean, the ending gets a little different with I like to call the 144K.
Yeah.
that get to go to heaven. I always
Right. That's a bummer.
yeah, right. And everything.
I mean,
else,
I guess
like
unless you're in but it still feels like a bummer even if you're in, because it's like, well, there's a lot of people that aren't, you know?
you'd think those slots are all filled at this point, right?
Yeah. I mean, it seems like if it's only 144,000 people that are going to heaven, like, man, we're all probably
screwed.
kind of screwed, because, like,
Well, and
it's not many slots, like you said.
and I'm not doing this justice either, because these were all conversations that happened like maybe 8 years ago. But I think what's
Yeah.
supposed to happen is Earth becomes a sanctuary for everyone else. It's like a heaven on Earth, so to speak. So yeah, the whole ending thing is a little bit different in terms of Jehovah's Witness, but everything else, and like God's pretty much the same in that book. There's not a whole lot of difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it was hanging out with people and getting to know them, and you realized a lot of these people that sort of you seem to feel like your upbringing kind of taught you to fear or to be a suspect of.
Oh,
changed your perspective.
Yes.
Where are your parents at now? Like, they still kind of that way?
Yeah, I'd say both of them are still fairly conservative Christians.
Yeah.
Practicing, I think maybe my mom more than my dad, but I don't want to speak for him. We don't talk about religion all that much. But my mom, I think, has softened on some of the hardline stances.
Yeah.
It's like homosexuality, things like that. She's softened on, which I think is mostly by perspective.
Yeah.
We have those in our family who identify as LGBTQ plus. God, am I screwing that up? I think
No, you did it. You nailed
Okay,
it.
so I think that's helped her to be
Yeah.
less judgmental.
I've heard so many stories like that where people, or even families that, are even so far one way that they're making like gay jokes or, jokes at the expense of those people. And then a few years later, one of their sons comes out and just radically changes the whole family from the inside. Now, obviously, there's the other stories where that they just excommunicate the person from the family. But I've heard some of the good stories where it like actually gives the family pause and they're like, oh, okay. Because again, there's now a face, it's not this faceless, issue on a debate on Fox News or CNN or whatever. It's like now a person.
Yeah, how do you demonize something that is now a part of your life and a part of somebody you love?
So I'm curious, growing up in Michigan, I grew up in Indiana. So also grew up, did you grow up in Detroit? I know you said you live in Detroit now.
No, I'm about 8 miles outside of Detroit and grew up in roughly the same area.
Okay. Because I grew up in a town that was super industrial, like car industry and all that kind of stuff. So similar-ish, I think, to Detroit and probably that kind of culture. And I mean, just hearing you talk, like I think we probably had very similar kind of upbringings just in terms of conservatism and all that.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so. We're blue collar.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mom's side was blue collar. My grandfather worked as a foreman in a factory, and my mom went to school to become a nurse. And then on my dad's side, it was mostly white collar. My grandpa was a business owner. My dad worked for Ford Motor Company as like a video editor and stuff like that. So yeah, again, two totally different. I don't even know how they got together. I don't know how their
You could
worlds
ask them.
collided.
They'll probably tell you.
You know, I don't want to tell that story.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I was bringing that up because I don't know that this thought has ever formulated in my brain before, but like, I think even if I think of my parents, like they just kind of stay in their bubble, like they are pretty much around the same people that believe the same kind of things. They've traveled like around the United States, kind of. But even then, the places they go to like are pretty much just more of the same. And I don't know, like if that was kind of your experience too, of like people around you, the culture of like, they've not really experienced other perspectives. You were kind of alluding to that a little bit earlier when you were talking, but I mean, was that kind of your take from growing up?
Yeah, definitely. And it controlled what I believed probably well into my 20s, because it was the same for me. I wasn't really experiencing anything outside of where I grew up anyway. I was like maybe 10, 20 miles out, and not a lot changed 10, 20 miles out. So
I wonder why that is. Because I live in California now. I'm one of these hippies. And
another Midwest transplant.
Yeah, totally. And I get crap for it all the time. Anytime I go back for family, like it's just constant, jokes about California boy. But I find it's different.
Too,
like it's different here. And even I lived in Arizona before this, and there's just a different value or something on like traveling or just going to different places and being with different people that I didn't really find growing up. Like most of my family were born in my hometown and will die in my hometown,
Yeah, Oh, that's kind of, you made me sad.
Why? I'm sorry.
I don't, it just sounds depressing. Like not to,
and I don't know if it is or not, I guess, but I'm kind of I'm processing through all this.
There's
so
something
as
admirable
fellow,
about it.
Midwestern boys, help me out here.
Yeah, there's something admirable about that. Like, I don't know, just people who, I mean, I guess on the one hand, it feels like maybe lacking in a spirit of adventure or interest or curiosity. But then on the other hand, maybe it's, people who do that are content. They like where they live, and
no, you're right.
There's something. I think there can be something admirable about not. Yeah, just being content where you are, not feeling like you have to go out and do these other things.
Probably safe. It's roots. I mean, there's something to be said about, laying down roots and being a part of a community for a long time. Yeah, I mean, I'm not. It probably sounds like I'm crapping on it. I'm not. I just can't imagine. Well, it's because I've been out. I broke those roots, and I've seen some things, and I can't imagine going back.
Where would you move if you could move anywhere? You said you'd like to.
Yeah, I actually really like LA. I just
save your money.
I can't afford it. We've looked at houses out there, and unless I want to drive 2 hours in every day,
expensive.
Yeah. It's and then Seattle. I have family and friends out there, and I'd love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Seattle's a cool area. Yeah. What you said you guys have kids? Is that right?
Yeah, we have a almost 12-year-old son, William, and a 2-year-old, almost 3, little girl.
That's a spread.
Ooh, big gap.
Yeah, that was a
unexpected treasure.
No, it was expected. It was it was a lot of work getting to the second one.
Oh, sure.
And it finally, she finally took. And
that's a way to say it. Sure.
It kind of, yeah. I mean, there were a lot of losses in between, and so this last one, as much of a blessing as she is the worst. Out of he's the best. She's the worst. Well, she doesn't understand. She's not going to hear this, Krista, unless you play it for her when she's a teenager. So she's a wrecking ball. She's just God. This sounds cliche. I'm air quoting right now. She's spirited. She's super spirited, which means she doesn't listen to anything, and she doesn't listen. That's 2 different things. They sound the same, but she does not. And
she's almost 3, you said?
Almost, yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's kind of common, though, for that age, right?
Do you have a 2 to 3 year old?
I have a 19-month-old. And then I have a 5-year-old and almost 8-year-old.
Okay, so you've been through this.
Yeah, so I've been through it. And I definitely remember the terrible twos with all of my kids, basically. I guess that's all I'm trying to say.
You're like, Drew, what do you know about this hell I'm living?
He's just trying to give you some hope.
I do think it generally gets better. I mean, there's probably a few people that it never does, but it's pretty rare. So you have a pretty good shot that it will get better.
Yeah.
I mean, just don't screw it up. It's kind of up to you, really.
I feel like the worst parent every day. So, yeah, I'm sure I'm doing a terrible job. Or, I mean, a great
Well,
job.
we could ask your wife. She could probably chime in on that.
Yeah, she can't hear right now because I have headphones on. Shh. She'll listen to it later.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a big question, but I feel like it's worth asking. How has that shaped you, like being a parent? How's that shaped your perspective on the world and the work that you do?
Man, that's a deep question.
He did say it was a big question. I warned you.
It didn't give me a whole lot of time to process, did it? It has shaped I've become a lot more protective, more Papa Bear, I suppose. Not necessarily in the content I produce or the things I listen to. I don't know. I'm just way more. I guess I'm a little more cynical about the world, and I'm hopeful for them, and that I at least lead them the right way, so that they can pick up at a point when they leave the nest and can function as decent human beings. I mean, that part's stressful in itself. I didn't have to think about that before, so it's an extra level of stress. But there's a sense of pride that I never had before, seeing them do like even mundane things. I'm like the little one, she told us to give her a minute. She's 2 years old, told us to give her a minute. I was mad.
Who has she heard that from? Who'd she pick that phrase up from?
That's my wife. And we realized that pretty quickly. She's like, I told her that. And I'm like, well, that's where she gets it. But I was proud. I was like, man, 2-year-olds aren't supposed to say that. But like when she makes herself dizzy and hits the corner of the coffee table, I'm not so proud. I'm like, you dummy. We have talked about this.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's all part of the process. Part of how they learn, right?
I don't think we keep arguing whether or not she's book smart or street smart. I don't think it's either. like usually it's binary. You're one or the other. I don't know. I don't know what this one.
Yeah. So what does your son do? What's he into?
Oh, he's a gamer. Actually, out of all of the games I
Big surprise.
Make, Bears versus Babies is his favorite. Which
nice.
Which strangely enough, it's not one of the favorites out of the ones we make, but for him, he loves the monster building stuff. Mm-hmm. And he plays other 12-year-old things like Roblox. I say 12-year-old. I'm sure there are adults out there playing Roblox with the kids, which just why we monitor it.
Yeah, that's good.
But that Minecraft and he's really into the Five Nights at Freddy's stuff, which I will.
Oh yeah,
he got the VR game, which is terrifying, and I won't play it. I won't do it.
It freaks you out or what?
Yeah, I don't want to be scared.
Yeah,
I'm with you, man. I don't do that stuff either.
It's bad enough just playing the game by itself in front of a screen, but when you go VR, you are in the game, man.
Yeah,
and they will eat your face.
Well, man, it's been great talking to you, Paul. Anything that any projects you've got going on that you want to mention here or promote to our audience?
Burning Cat. Can you tell us about Burning Cat?
Man, get out of here. You know what? If you go to burningcat.com, I'll plug it, and then you can learn all about the Burning Cat, and you can sign up, and you can be a part of this thing that I know a lot about and just don't want to talk about because it's a secret.
Yeah.
Yeah, Yeah, because you're not on that committee. We understand. No, but any projects you guys got coming up besides Burning Cat that you'd want to mention?
We do. Not that I can mention by name, but yeah, we have another game in the works, and
Stay tuned.
Yep, and we will have more coming. So, yeah,
Great.
Exciting times.
Cool. Yeah. And where can people follow you online?
Oh, sure. On Instagram, that's probably where I do things the most. It's at pshort with 2 T's.
Okay. Cool.
2 T's.
Great.
2 T's.
Awesome, man. Cool. Well, we're big fans of Exploding Kittens and the work that you do, and really enjoyed having you on the podcast. And so, yeah, definitely encourage people to go check it out on Instagram and go check out Burning Cats. I always want to say
Just
Burning
singular
Kittens.
cat.
Yeah,
Just
Burning Cat. Burning Cat, right. Because, like,
Just
Burning
the
Man.
one.
Yeah, Burning Cat. Got it. And go check out what we're doing at Love Thy Nerd. Go to lovethynerd.com. Check out our Facebook community. Just search for Love Thy Nerd Community on Facebook and ask to join. And then like us on Facebook too. Just search for Love Thy Nerd and click like. We're on all the social medias, Instagram, Twitter. Check us out there. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm DrewDixon82. We have a whole podcast network that you should check out. We have a comic book podcast called The Pull List. We have a general nerd culture podcast that gets into all areas of nerddom called Free Play. Go search for those on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you do podcasts and rate and review those, and we'd really appreciate it. That helps us a lot. If you'd like to support what we do, I mean, really, to be honest with you, we can't do any of this without some financial backing. So, yeah, consider helping us out. Just go to lovethynerd.com/give, right?
Partner,
sorry. lovethynerd.com/partner, and you can consider supporting this podcast and all the efforts that we do. Maybe you'd like to come on a trip with us. We're going to Gen Con soon. We'll go to some more trips later this year and into 2020. We've got our own convention called Love Thy Nerd Con, LTN Con in Dallas in October. What are the dates, Chris? Exact dates?
What a great question. October 4th through the 6th.
October 4th through the 6th, so it's a weekend
just
trip.
Go to ltncon.info. I know as much about it as Paul knows about Burning Cat.
Oh, man.
Yeah. It's super cheap, and also, I mean, you can get a cheap air. Dallas is one of the cheapest places to fly, so go get a cheap. If you need to fly, go get a cheap ticket. Come hang out with us. We'll play some games. We'll have some sessions. It's going to be great. So, I guess that's it for us. Paul, again, thanks so much, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. This was great.
Appreciate it, dude.